Hey everyone, Linklet here, and welcome to my top 10 AFK money making methods. Now before I begin this, I just want to let you guys know that I will be ranking everything on an AFK meter. I made it up, but the AFK meter is the following. Light AFK is 10 to 20 seconds of AFK. Medium AFK is 20 to 40 seconds. Very AFK is 40 to 60 seconds. And Ultra AFK is 1 minute plus. So just keep that in mind, as I will be giving each of the methods an AFK ranking. Also, I want to let you know that this is the top 10, but I did have a hard time ranking them, as some are less AFK but make more money, and others are way more AFK but they make less money. So honestly, it's really just a list of 10 and you can pick from whatever you like, but for the purpose of the top 10, I did rank them in an order. So yeah, now that that's out of the way, let's begin. Now starting off at number 10, we're going to be going with chopping elder trees. Now the requirements for this aren't too steep, but kind of. The requirements are 90 wood cutting, and doing this you're going to be making about 600k per hour if you're making the logs. It's really AFK. I gave it an ultra AFK rating because it's up to 3 minutes. However, after you're done depleting the tree of the logs, you have to then go walk to another tree, bank your logs. So it's a lot of clicking in between the AFK, if that makes sense. But it is ultra AFK in the fact that you can just sit there and not look at your screen for an entirety of 3 minutes. For number 9, we're going to be doing making the heart teleport tabs. These are the teleport tabs that take you to the God Wars Dungeon 2. And basically, the requirements are 61 magic, 67 construction, and you must have a mahogany eagle lectern inside your player-owned house. To do this, what you're going to do is equip a fire staff and then have some law runes in your inventory, and then just have your butler constantly bring soft clay to you. It is recommended that you have the best butler, which is the demon butler, for this method, because he will be able to bring you more at a time. The GP per hour for this is about 825k. That is an underestimate. I kind of took current GE prices and then kind of made the money per hour a little bit less. And the AFK rating I'm going to give it is Ultra AFK because you can AFK up to 90 seconds, which is pretty good in my opinion. Okay, moving on to number 8, we're going with Divination. And this is mostly for incandescent, but you can also do cursed if you choose. So the requirements for this is 95 divination for incandescent, and then for cursed any level. However, I don't recommend you do cursed until you're at least 50 divination, but you can start at level 1 if you so choose, whatever you want. Now, some things to make this more AFK, you're going to definitely want the Ethereal Connection perk from the Memorial to Guthix. This makes it so that when you are getting memories from the little wisp, the wisp stays around longer before it depletes. And another thing I recommend is the Nightmare Muspa, which basically makes it so that you can store memories inside the familiar, which basically just makes it even more AFK. Now, the GP per hour with this is around 2 mil per hour, doing incandescent energy, and then for cursed it depends on your level because cursed scales with your level as you get higher. So around 50 divination it's 1 mil per hour, around 75 divination it's 2 million per hour, and then at 95 divination it's 3 mil per hour. Cursed does sound better than incandescent, but something you need to keep in mind is that cursed is in the wilderness, so it's a lot less AFK. So my AFK ratings for these are medium AFK for incandescent and light AFK for cursed. Okay, moving on to number 7 is making cannonballs. This is probably something that you've done in the past before because it's been around for ages, and it's actually pretty decent money making method even in old school. So to do this, you're going to need 35 smithing, you're going to need the dwarf cannon quest complete, and in order to make twice as much money per hour, you're going to want the Mauritania legs 2. I highly recommend this because more money, why not? So to do this, you're going to just need steel bars as inputs. It's not that bad. And in order to get 1.2 mil an hour, you're going to want to do this in Canifis. There is a specific bank and furnace that you use. I will show a map on screen and me doing it. And basically what you do is you just run back and forth between these and you'll make twice as many cannonballs per hour. If you don't have it, then you can do this anywhere. I recommend a portable forge, as this can just be 1 square away from a bank. So yeah, definitely a very AFK method. This is ultra AFK. It's the rating I'm going to give it because it's exactly 162 seconds of AFK, which is very, very AFK. All right, at number 6, we're going to be talking about Dark Beasts. The requirements for these are 90 Slayer and 92 Prayer. I also recommend that you have a Demon Horn necklace and recommend that you have a Vampirism aura. The GP per hour here is around 1.6 million. You can get a lot more if you are less AFK and picking up most of the drops, but if you're kind of zoning out and really AFK, you're not going to be getting most of those drops, so 1.6 mil is definitely a safe estimate here. The AFK rating I'm going to give this is medium AFK. It seems about around every 30 seconds you kind of have to start picking up stuff, because then things get really spread out and then they'll despawn if you don't pick them up. So it's not too AFK, but just enough AFK to where you could, get a little work done on the side, just enough to where you don't have to fully be paying attention to the game. Alright, at number 5, we're going to be talking about Harmonized Runite Ore. This has quite hefty requirements considering that you must have Prifddinas access, and that requires the completion of the Plague's End quest. If you don't know what the requirements for that quest are, look it up, and you'll definitely be surprised. It's quite high requirements. On top of that, you're going to need 95 mining in order to mine a Harmonized Runite rock, and it has to be Tra hour, or Trahern hour in Prif, which comes around, well, it's random, so I would say it comes around maybe every 3 hours, but I mean, it's completely random, so you don't know. When you do this, though, during the hour, you make about 1.1 million GP, just based on all the runite that you get. So it is quite a good money-making method, very AFK, but it can only be done at certain times, so it's not like something you can just grind out and do all day long. The AFK rating I'm going to give this is Ultra AFK, considering that most Harmonized Runite rocks last a very long time. Sometimes you get unlucky and they don't last very long, but for the most time, it seems about 90 seconds is the average AFK time, so it's very nice for AFK. Alright, moving on to number 4, we're going to be talking about Prifddinas thieving, also known as pickpocketing elves. The requirements for this are quite high. Starting off, you're going to need the Plague's End quest completed, and you're going to need 91 thieving. I also recommend that you use an Abyssal Lurker if you do not have 99 thieving, as the Abyssal Lurker will boost your thieving higher, therefore making the method more AFK. Also, I recommend that you have the Arty Cloak, Arty Cloak 3 to be exact. Arty Cloak 3 makes it so that you have less of a chance of getting caught when pickpocketing, so that makes this method so much more AFK. GP per hour is going to be around 750k with the Arty Cloak, and then 500k without the Arty Cloak. This is because certain clans give more money than others, and if you stick to these clans, you're going to be making way more GP per hour because you can stay longer in these clans before getting caught. The AFK rating I'm going to give this is very AFK with the Arty Cloak and medium AFK without. Like I said, without that cloak, you get caught pretty often. And to be honest, I actually really don't recommend this method without the Arty Cloak unless you really want 99 thieving. Alright, moving on to Chaos Dwogres. This can also kind of include Chaos Dwarves, just kind of depends on what you're going for here. But the requirements for this are quite high. The requirements are 70 defense, a tier 70 plus weapon. I really recommend something higher, but you can get away with tier 70. The Vampirism aura or the Penance aura, and Forgiveness of a Chaos Dwarf quest. You need to have that complete. This is around 2 million GP per hour, which is quite sad when you think about it because this used to be so much more money per hour. Dragon pickaxes have dropped significantly ever since a lot of people started doing this with their alt accounts. But hey, it's still decent money, so hop on this while you can. The GP per hour is really mostly just based on how often you get a dragon pickaxe, so it's really RNG based, but even with really terrible RNG, it still averages around 2 mil per hour, especially if you pick up those hand cannons that the Chaos Dwogres drop. The AFK rating for this is going to be Ultra AFK, as typically you can AFK for around 2 minutes, even more, just depending on how good your stats are and how well you can maintain prayer and your health and whatnot. Moving on to number 2, it's another combat method. Surprise, surprise. We're going to be talking about Abyssal Demons. To do Abyssal Demons really AFK and effectively, you're going to need 92 prayer, 71 agility so you can access the roof of the Slayer Tower, the Ectoplasmator, and Vampirism Aura. You can also use penance here too. It's completely up to you. The GB per hour here is around 2 mil an hour. AFKing, obviously every once in a while you have to make sure that you are looting properly, or you can use a legendary pet to loot for you. The AFK rating I'm going to give this is Ultra AFK, as you can AFK usually up to 1 minute or a little bit extra before you have to loot things on the ground. Alright, number 1 is kind of a surprise for a lot of you, and that's going to be flipping. Now, the requirements for flipping are going to be extensive knowledge of RuneScape. And I say this because I know a lot of people, especially when I was newer to the game, that want to get into flipping and they just can't figure out how to do it. They look up flipping guides on YouTube, they try to ask people who are very wealthy for advice, and all I have to say is, unless you know RuneScape like the back of your hand, unless you understand the market, unless you understand a lot of the items in the game and what they do and how frequently they're purchased, I don't recommend that you flip. I think that flipping is really only effective when you really understand the game, and it's taken me around 2 years to really get it down efficiently. So I would say unless you're a veteran of RuneScape and you've been playing for a long time, this method really isn't for you. Now, the GP per hour obviously is dependent on what you're flipping. Hell, if you are a billionaire, you could make upwards of hundreds of millions per hour, or if you're, a little on the poor side, but you still understand what you're doing, you can make, 1-2 mil an hour. It just depends, obviously, on what you're flipping. So for GP per hour, I'm just going to say infinite because who knows what kinds of money billionaires are making off of flipping. But yeah, it really just depends on what you flip. The AFK rating I'm going to give this is a good night. See you in 8 hours. AFK rating, because you don't have to even play the game to flip. I know a lot of people who haven't played RuneScape in years, and all they do is they just log on to the RuneScape app from their phone, flip, and then go back to their real life. So it really depends. A good method for beginner flippers, if you want to really pursue this and do your best, you can just visit the GE in between any activity that you do. So if you're on a Slayer task, you go to the GE, put something in for a buy offer, go do your Slayer task, come back, sell it for the flip price, and then go do something, and vice versa. So you just come back to the GE every single time you finish something in the game, and then you make a little extra cash on top of whatever you're doing. The AFK is basically infinite here, so yeah. That is my top 10 AFK money making methods. If I left out anything that is common knowledge, be sure to leave it in the comments, and I can do like a pinned comment kind of thing where I talk about some stuff I left out. So yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. I'm going to try to make RuneScape videos twice a month, maybe weekly in the future. And yeah, have a nice day wherever you're at, and see you later.